I'm Diana, and I own a platform called Better Topics, where we regularly help hundreds of couples experience more love, joy, and connection, and also have a lot of fun. Before we get into today's video and before welcoming our amazing guest that we have today, I just want to remind you about our amazing Better Topics card game for couples. You can get this either from our platform or from Amazon, UK, US, Australia, and Canada. For those of you who are not very keen on physical card games, we have you covered. We have just launched our Better Topics app. The only thing you need to do is go to either Google Play Store or Apple Store and download it from there and invite your partner to play. Also, if you use the code DI10, you will get your first month off of any of the paid memberships. And now let's get into today's topic with our amazing guest, Miracle Sims. Wife and mother of one, Miracle Sims is a versatile talent. Since she received her associate's degree in theater at Gordon College in 2006, she has been acting, writing, singing, and songwriting independently. She is currently the owner of several business endeavors. Miracle plays Unwind, Self-Care, and Sip Spa. She is also host and creator of the podcast talk show God, Sex, and Love, and author of The Juice 30-Day Bible Study Journal, The Wine Amateur Wine Tasting Journal, and Unwind Self-Care Coloring Book for Women. Visit godsexandlove.com to watch her weekly talk show and or listen to her podcasts for daily inspiration. Now, let's welcome Miracle Sims as we talk more about relationship, marriage, and how does she do all of that, having also a young child and still taking care of her relationship. So, hi Miracle, and thank you so much for coming on our channel.
Hello. How are you doing today, lady?
I am very good, thank you. I am very excited and very happy to have you on. For our listeners, I would just want to mention that we already had at least a 3-hour conversation last week and then another hour the other day. So, I'll just let you tell people about yourself a bit more and what you do, what your passions are, and especially, how do you have time to do all of that, considering you also have a young child, considering you're also married, and, when do you have time to do everything? I mean, don't you have 24 hours in a day like the rest of us?
Oh man, well thank you so much. I don't know if she's hyped me up or whatnot, but I really do appreciate you having me on your channel. Well, my name is Miracle Sims, and as of right now, since COVID, I would say that I'm a talk show host / podcast host, and alongside that, I've become an author. And those are the things that I'm kind of juggling right now, like I'm, in regards to careers. Before that, pre-COVID, I am an actress and entrepreneur, so I have a, I guess several small businesses or whatever the case is. But at that time, I only had like my performing arts business. I would do dinner shows and custom shows and all types of things like that, as well as being an actress and independent actress and entrepreneur. But of course, doing my dinner shows and all that stuff went on hold when COVID hit, right? And so, long story short, I mean, it is rather long, but there had been this idea that had been on my heart and mind for years, and it's called God, Sex, and Love. And in my mind, it was going to be a talk show, and I was working towards it, doing little things here and there, getting the logo done, getting this done, and X, Y, and Z, while I was being an actress and entrepreneur. And but basically, what happened was when COVID hit, I found myself at home, just me and my son, which was new, obviously, because he was born in 2018, so I already was kind of like getting into that mindset of, okay, like things need to shift a little bit because obviously I can't do the gigs and stuff that I was doing before with my child. And so I was focused more so on my own personal business and whatnot, because at the end of the day, nobody can tell me, hey, you can't have your child at my job, because I could have him there if I wanted to, basically. And so I was already kind of shifting into that anyway to create, figuring out, okay, can I do something from home or whatever the case is. And so, but again, fast forward to 2020, I'm at home, me and him. And girl, I'm trying to make the long story short. I really am.
That's fine. We
But
have all the time in
basically,
the world. People will understand now why our conversations, take
just go
about
on.
3 hours.
I mean, it's just that like the stories it's very like detailed about what happened, but basically what ended up happening is when 2020 hit, I started my podcast. It was more so like a challenge for myself at the time to kind of take time every day to, Bible study and spend time with God and everything like that. And the podcast for me was going to be my accountability. I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to do this every day and I'm going to have daily inspiration, basically, is what I had told myself at the time, which was quite different from my original idea for God, Sex, and Love. But, I was like, it's something, it's a start, right? And it definitely was, because next thing I know, months later, I got the opportunity to kick off the talk show version of God, Sex, and Love. So that was an amazing thing that happened. Again, a lot of details in between. And then since then, my first publication, which is this Bible study journal, was created, or I created it this year, actually. And then there's just been so many things since then that I've been able to do because I stepped out on faith and made that first move to start the podcast. So as for the 24 hours in the day, I mean, yeah, I have just the same thing that, everyone has, I think. And a lot of times, ironically enough, I feel like I'm not doing enough. A lot of times I feel like, oh, like when I tell people all the things I do, like, I think some people get it, some people don't. And they see that, okay, you're doing a lot of different things. But then, I mean, when I'm actually doing the things, it just kind of feels like, time is going by or whatever the case is. Like, oh, you're waiting for this or that or whatever the case is. So, girl, look, stop me because I'll keep going trying to explain this whole
So
thing.
I want to ask something because the title of your podcast is quite intriguing. Why
Uh-huh.
is it God, sex, and love? How are all the three together? Because these
Uh-huh.
three words are not often put together, you know?
Right. And I think that's part of the problem, personally. Honestly, the name God, Sex, and Love, I believe it kind of was inspired because if somebody was watching me on YouTube back in the day, back in my single days, I would one of the things I shared when I first was on YouTube, and I was like, I'm going to share my life. I'm going to share, how I feel as a Christian single woman. And when I was telling telling the people what I think about, I would say that, hey, I always think about God. I always think about sex and my career. That's what I said at that time. I said my career. But then that's like in the second episode, I came back and was like, look, let me explain something. It's not just sex, it's romance, it's the whole thing. Cause I wanted marriage, but I guess I was just super candid in that first in that first video. Like, I think about sex. So the only thing that, I mean, I left career off of the thing, but really God, sex, and love, it just, yes, we talk about God, sex, love, and everything in between. Like I just wanted to be clear that we talk about everything and we talk about sex in a real way. Yes, I'm a Christian, but we're not shying away from the conversation. We're not going to sit here and act like we're perfect or any of those things. Because at the end of the day, we all have sinned. We all, need that grace and mercy. And I think that that's what GSL has become. It's become this, safe space to be transparent. And I met so many amazing people, had so many amazing conversations since I started. And I'm excited. I'm excited about what God is doing.
I love that. I mean, what used to annoy me, and in people who are Christian, now I don't have anything against Christian people. Usually I am a Christian myself as well, although I'm not practicing actively. What used to annoy me is when they used to portray themselves as these sin-free people, and as if, talking about sex or talking about romance would be like, oh my God, a big, big taboo. And I was like, why? How do you think, Christianity survived for this long by people having children? How do you think they have those children? It's like they don't just appear. We are not
Exactly.
sinful. We are not blessed as Mother Mary was. They don't
Mhm.
just appear. You have to make them
Yes.
somehow.
Yeah, and that's my thing about it, because again, with God not being in the conversation, I feel like we can see what it looks like when God's not in the conversation. We see that around us every day, like
Yes.
what godless sex looks like. Like, you can see that, like, you can go and Google it real quick and that, find all kinds of interesting things. And I mean, for me, the way I look at it is like, okay, I believe that God is love, and I also believe that God created sex. And when I read the Bible, when I see things about sex, it's not this thing where it's like, oh, is, I don't think sex itself is bad. You know what I mean? Sex itself isn't a sin. Now there's, I guess I feel like there's parameters to it. Hey, you probably shouldn't do this or that. But sex itself isn't a sin, and I don't think it should be as taboo as it is in regards to conversations about it.
So now tell me how all this ties into you being married and having a great relationship with your husband. So did you actually have the podcast before you guys met, or was it afterwards? And what was his opinion of it, really?
Okay, so basically, so he knew about at least me and my struggles as a single woman, because I was very like when we met. One of the things I did, which is so funny, because hopefully I'll have a fourth book really soon. I'm working on it, but I shared that book that I had written at the time back in my single days. I shared that with him, so I feel like, hey, you have a clear understanding of who this girl was, or whatever, before you met me, whatever. And this was back in 2016. So again, that was again the beginning stages of God, Sex, and Love. My whole single days, me, dealing with all of what I was dealing with as a single woman, right? And so I shared that with him. And since then, of course, I share different ideas and things like that. This guy has become my muse in so many ways. Like, he's pushed me into creating so many amazing projects and whatnot since I've known him. He's been there supporting me with my businesses, like I said, when I was doing the dinner shows. Like, one of the first things we did together, he came and did one of my dinner shows with me as an actor and whatnot. And it's not even his thing. He's not into acting. He's like into computers and all this stuff. But I guess he just went for me. I don't know. But he helped me out with one of my shows and whatnot. And I really do appreciate him, that he's like somebody that gets me as an artist. Like, he doesn't, make me feel any way about the things that I do as an artist or whatever. And he's encouraged the things I do. So when you ask about God, Sex, and Love in particular, it would be this thing that I would always tell him about. I'm like, man, I want to do this show, X, Y, and Z. So funny thing is, in 2019, I was like, I want to get this idea out here. I want to do, maybe I'll just make it a blog instead, right? And so that's what I told him. And he was like, oh, you should make it a podcast. And I just was like, man, see, this is what you always do. You always add more work to me. I just said I'm going to make it a blog, and now you're adding the podcast to it. It's like, goodness, can I just do one thing? You think I'm Superwoman. You want me to do everything. And that's what I was thinking at that time. And so I just kind of brushed it to the side, like, And then lo and behold, 2020 rolled around, and the idea about podcasts came back around, and I just was like, so I started to look into it. And when I realized how easy it would be for me to kick it off, it's crazy that that's the thing that kicked everything off here. It kicked the show off, it kicked books, it kicked everything else off that I had in my mind to do. So, that's my muse right there.
I think that's amazing how he encouraged you to go towards a podcast, because I think he knew you in a way that you didn't know yourself, and he realized what your strengths are right off the bat. This is similar to a discussion I had with one of my friends years ago. She has still this blog and is quite successful and everything. And I wanted to do something on the side, after hours, after my normal corporate job. And I did tell her, like, what do you think if I would start a blog as well? Obviously on different topics and everything. But, I was just thinking to do something, with something more creative.
Right.
And the first thing she said was, you should do a vlog, not a blog. So as in not in the written word as much, but video, because she said, she worded it like, you are more delicious when people look at you, because I do tend to talk with my hands as well, and I do take to make faces as well. And then she did say that I'm a lot funnier when I explain things, rather than when I just write them. So that got me thinking for a while, but then I didn't really know how to start it, and I was quite shy at first as well. And then the better topics came along and everything. So I kind of had to step out of my comfort zone and actually embrace it and start doing it. And even now, if I watch my first few videos, they're so cringy. And I still cringe when I look at myself then, because I know how nervous I was, and I know how many takes it took me to actually record it and all of that. And now obviously I'm a lot more, comfortable with it, because, I got into it and I've been doing it for a while. And I do understand why he would suggest that to you, because you do have that very nice type of voice, that strong woman voice. And I do think, that people like more and more to listen and watch rather than to read necessarily. And there are so many
Mm,
things that, you can just explain better when you explain them, through either talking or video even. So I do
yes.
see why he would say that. And I really love the fact that he is, supporting you and encouraging you to do more and more, because that's amazing,
Mhm.
I
It is.
love it when I see people like that, and couples especially, because from my own experience in my previous relationships, nobody encouraged me to do anything. Every time I would have a crazy idea, they'd be like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about this. Can you actually do it? Those type
Wow.
of comments.
Hmm.
Whereas now my husband, he's like, whatever crazy idea I have, he's like, yes, go do it. He's like pushing me, do
Yes.
it more, do it more, do it again, do it again. And
Yes.
it's so much nicer to do anything, even if they don't really help you with anything material. Even just the
Yeah.
fact that they encourage you to do it, and that
Exactly.
they see that thing in you, that you could do it, you have that
Hmm.
potential. Even that kind of gives you a sort of reassurance that, yes, I might be actually good at this. Let's just do it. Let's just take another step towards my dream and see what happens.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
love
I
that.
totally agree. Me too. I definitely agree with you that having a partner, having a spouse that, supports you and all those things that you said is definitely important and stuff. I mean, if you're dating, that's something you need to look for, because I can't even imagine, like, if I was with an ex, or I mean, not that I, let me say, okay, with the last ex, the person that I met before my husband, if I was still with him, I don't even know where I would be. Like, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. You know, and not that he just was horrible, but when I found some partners and spouses, it was like this. I hate to call it jealousy, but it was almost like we were competing or something. When at the end of the day, I was looking at us like, hey, we can work together, or we're a team, and it felt almost like they looked at us as like competition or something like that. Maybe because they were in entertainment too, but I'm just like, but we could do things together. Because even with now, like I told you, my husband is into like computers, and like now he's into like trading and stocks and all this stuff, and he's telling me all that. It's so funny because I'm sure we do this both to each other. Like, he'll be saying stuff to me, I'm like, okay, and then on the flip side, I'm saying things to him and he's probably doing the same thing. Again, having his support has definitely been one of those things that has it's just been a great addition to my life.
So, one thing that I talk about in my videos a lot is about knowing your values. What do you want in a relationship and in a marriage? And,
Mm-hmm.
being as honest as possible with your partner quite early on. Now, let me know what you have done. What did you do? When you guys met, how did it go? When did you break it down to him? Like, listen, these are my main requirements. This is what I want. Or did you go about it, another way? Like, how did it go?
Well, our story is very interesting. But long story short, again, I would just say that basically, what happened with us is that when we met, um, I was in a situation where I had just kind of well, not okay. Women, you probably understand this. We'll be done with the situation months prior, but we don't leave until later. So it was a
Yes.
situation like that where it was like I knew that relationship was done, but I just was trying, and trying to just be there for him as well and not just give up and all that stuff. And so basically it was like when we finally separated, ironically enough, I'm trying to make the long story short, but basically what happened was this right here. We separated. I probably for once in my life, this is the whole story, girl. For once in my life, I probably was like, you know what? Fine. I'm gonna give up on love for right now. I'm gonna just wait. Maybe I'll try love again next year. I got to get back to myself. I got to get back to like me or whatever case it is. For the first time in my life, I just wasn't looking no more. Right? Would you not? The same day I said that is the day I met my husband. Um, long
As
story
it
short,
happens.
it's so crazy. Like, and people told me over the years, they were like, "Oh, when you stop looking, it'll happen. When you stop looking." But me, I was always looking. That was my problem. I was always like, "Where is he?" And so, and for that split second, that I was like, you know what? I'll try again next year. Boom, here he is, and And at that time, what I had to do with myself, because I had to decide, I had to be like, okay, look, Miracle, you see this guy right here, right? And because, well, girl, I have to tell you one day what the long story about what happened. But basically, but when we met and we had that genuine connection, what I had to do was ask myself, like, okay, Miracle, are you going to receive this genuine connection and just, and see what happens? Or are you going to be still stuck on this guy that you knew things was over with just because y'all just finally separated? And I just was like, well, I guess you can see what happened. Because I mean, my whole thing was like, I'm not going to sit here and dwell or be sad about something that I knew was over months ago, just because we finally, let it go. To be and act like I don't see this great man in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, so, I gave it a chance or whatever. I gave it up a chance again. And I mean, and here we are. I mean, almost 5 years of marriage next week, and so, and one son later, and so, yeah, that's one of those things. So when did I tell him? Basically, so, okay, first few conversations was just like normal, right? Getting to know each other, just laughing, all this different stuff. And then unfortunately, it was like the realities of my situation showed its head. Basically, I got a phone call from a mutual friend of me and my ex, and they were trying to figure out what happened. They're like, oh, is everything okay? And X, Y, and Z. And so by the time, and I just happened to be there with him having a conversation. And so I excused myself from that. And then when I came back, he saw my energy or whatever had shifted or whatever. And so here he comes, he grabs a glass of wine, and he's like, what's going on, and X, Y, and Z. And I explained to him about what I had just been through or whatnot. And so I think maybe that was one of the first things that kind of gave him an idea of like where I was and whatnot. And then I think eventually when I did let him read the book that hopefully it will be getting published really soon, when I let him read that draft of the book, that is pretty much like a memoir. It's like, it's just me reflecting on my life and as a single woman. I wrote it in my 20s. And so it was me reflecting on my life and kind of, it's like, because I took my whole dating situation and like how I was looking at it and whatnot and wrote it down, basically what happened. And so I think by sharing that with them as well, it's funny because every now and then now I'm like, man, what you said you read the book, right? He's like, yeah, I read the book. I read your book. And I was like, why didn't you run? like, why didn't you run for the hills? Like, what in your mind made you think she's talking about me? You know what I mean? Because obviously, I mean, because not to say I don't know if I wrote exactly like, oh, I'm looking for this special man or nothing, but I think I was really breaking myself down, and I was really like sharing what I had done to prepare for this time in my life, And so, yeah, when I think back on that, sometimes I'm like, you could have ran for the hills when you read all of this stuff about me, like, or read all of these things where I'm like, I'm preparing for this man and I don't know who he is, and all the things that I was writing in the book. And so, so yeah, I would think that those two things, that first initial conversation that I had with him after reality hit, and then also that sharing, my thoughts, my memoir.
I love the way you said it, that you were surprised he didn't run. I actually had the same feeling, with Robert when we met, because most guys that I used to go on a date with, because I'm quite blunt and I'm quite straightforward, and I wasn't afraid, to let them know, maybe not exactly the first date, but the second or the third one, definitely, to let them know, I have all my stuff together, I have my career, I have my house, I have this, I have that. I don't need money. I just want a partner that will enhance my life even more rather than, bring problems on and stuff. And many of them would run because they would not feel confident enough, or they would feel, that I'm outshining them in any way, And my mom actually told me that I am too smart for them, and that many men don't like this. So I told my mom I would rather be alone for years and years to come rather than be with someone that I have to dumb myself down to, just so I don't outshine them, just so I don't hurt their male ego and everything. And I'm like, no, I worked way too hard, way too many years to get here, to have my own house, to have everything I want. And I want to be proud of it. I don't want to have to hide it. I don't have to downplay it,
Right.
So when I've actually met Robert, he appreciated all these things about me,
Mm-hmm.
he actually
Mm-hmm.
appreciated the fact that I saved money, and bought a house. He appreciated the fact that I went to a totally different country where they speak a totally different language than my maternal language.
Mm-hmm.
And I still made it work. I still worked in corporate. I still ended up being a manager. And he
Mm-hmm.
appreciated, all that drive and all of those things that I've achieved in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was one of the first moments when I was like, oh my god, he didn't run away. Like I put everything there, like I told him everything, and he's still here. He hasn't run away yet, and he's actually
Yeah.
appreciating that. And I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, he is the one. So
Yeah.
I was actually happy because you see, this is a question that comes up on our website and from our customers and readers quite a lot.
Mm.
How soon should you? Because I talk a lot about being certain of what values you have and what do you actually want in a relationship. Beyond that passion and beyond that chemistry that's there, in the beginning.
Mm.
Beyond all that, there has to be something more consistent that actually makes a relationship stick for many years. So
Yes.
I got this question quite a lot. They were asking me when is it best to actually put it all out there, because they don't want to scare them off and they don't want to, yeah, basically that's it, scare them off. This is the best because some of them, and one of our readers actually reached out to me and said that they had these great amazing dates until she started talking about serious stuff and plans for the future. And then she said after that date he literally just vanished. He didn't reply to her text anymore, he didn't call her anymore, as if he would have not existed anymore. And she was so frustrated, she didn't know exactly what happened.
And sometimes, and I get that, sometimes we really want closure, right? We really want to understand, because I'm like that too. I'm like that with friends. I'm like with a lot of people. I'm like, if people just ghost or whatever the case is, it's like, man, what happened? Like, but honestly, that's probably the best thing that God could have done for her. And I was reflecting on that myself because I am editing the book.
You
And I was
said
just thinking
it, but
about
I said something
it.
similar as well. But yes.
Yeah, and so and I was just reflecting again on my life and whatnot, because I'm doing the editing and whatnot. And so, and when I'm reading back on those things and those experiences that I had with different guys and whatnot, yeah, I mean, and me, I would prefer, and I always did, I would prefer for a man to be completely honest. Like, if you're not feeling me, if you don't want me, whatever case, just say that. What I would get over the years is I would get like dudes that seem like they like me, seem like they would say all these great things about me, tell me that I'm all this and that, and then it would never go anywhere. And I'm just like, and it would be confusing to me. It'd be like, is something wrong with me? Like, am I not getting? If you're saying I'm this and that, then why are you letting me go? And see, for me, I was always tugging between the spirit and the flesh, right? So spiritually, it's like I already knew he wasn't the one. It's not the time. I already knew that in my mind. But when you're dealing with it, in the flesh, you're just like, what's wrong? Why did he take it to the next level? He said I was this, he said I was that, whatever. Now again, I guess I can look back on my younger self and be like, oh, Miracle, you're gonna be all right. But at that time, it was very frustrating, right?
Yes.
So and I would say what I did for me was like, I really had to take a hard look at myself and really take a look at myself and see what it was that I wanted, because I was looking at that time, I was doing like the complete opposite of what I wanted. Like, I wanted marriage and whatnot, but I was kind of fooling around, because obviously this sex thing has been a issue in my life. And not that I was just going around here, sowing my oats, as people say, but like, yeah, I was fooling around, foreplay, all the things,
Yeah.
girl. So, and so basically, and I guess I share all that to say, again, to be open and transparent about, I guess, me and my life, but then also to just say that at that time I had to take a look at myself in the mirror and say, Miracle, okay, these are things that you don't want the results of what you're doing. Like, that's not really what you want. you want marriage, you want longevity, you want loyalty, you want all those things that come with, having a husband. And so, and I think that that's what helped me shift, right, to be able to be where I am now. Because I've had friends, I know we talked a little bit about friends and whatnot. I've had friends that it's like they stay there, they stay in that same place. They can see the stuff that's wrong, they can see the stuff that they need to change about themselves, but they don't want to do that. They just want to focus on whatever they feel in the moment. And then years later, they're still wondering, oh, why am I in the same place? Well, hey, maybe you could have changed some things about yourself. And as you change, you learn, you grow, you realize what it is that you really, really want. And then when you meet that person, you'll be able to tell, like, okay, this person compliments me. This person, like you said, appreciates me. But when you're not, I guess when you don't know in your mind, like what it is you really want, then you're just accepting anything. You're just like, oh yeah, this person, whatever the case is. And so,
and then you end up frustrated that, they're not the person you would want them to be. But then, you just accepted to be in a relationship with anyone just because, well, that person is there and he's the only one interested. So I do remember, my last relationship before meeting Robert. It was, I think, 2 years before I actually met Robert. So for 2 years I was single and I was still going on dates. But every time I would be frustrated, I'd be like, no, this is not it. That is not it. My mom would, go mental. She's like, oh my God, you don't like anyone. What's happening? What's wrong? And I said, I don't know. Is there something wrong with me? I didn't think for a moment that whatever I wanted was so unachievable. You would think that those are the basic things that anyone would want and anyone would do, and they would be quite straightforward. But the surprise was that, well, no, because I told my mom, what is it so crazy in the things that I want? I want someone who is slightly normal, let's say. Now, what that normal is obviously differs for everyone, but like slightly normal, to have an okay job to the point where I don't have to give them money, like they can sustain themselves. And if anything happens, they can keep a house, let's say, because that's my personal idea of being a man in a house, and to have the education level that I had as well, that was the bare minimum. If he has more, or maybe not exactly to the level that I was educated, that was okay as well, as long as I would see that he wants to grow, he wants to educate, and he wants to better himself. That was my main thing. And I told my mom, like, is that a lot I'm asking for? I thought that's like the bare minimum. I thought everyone should achieve at least that much. And the interesting thing was that with my last relationship, that guy did have everything that I needed. He had everything that I needed at that point, and he had everything I asked for at that point in time, because I thought, those are the only things I want. And the relationship itself, it started off well, but then soon enough it became very boring and very not going anywhere, and I really, really didn't like that. And few months in, I was like, okay, this no, this won't take us anywhere. And then we ended splitting up, and then I realized that actually it was my fault. I cannot blame him, because I asked for those things, and whatever I asked, I got. And I decided, yes, that means I need to ask for better things in my life. So later on, especially after I kept educating myself into the relationship realm as well, because like anything, at work, if you don't know something, you'll get some training, you'll know how to do it. With relationships, I realized I've been failing miserably. So I was like, okay, I need to learn this as well. And then I realized that, I need to ask for better. And when I say things, I don't mean material things. I mean like things you want to experience in your relationship, like, support, maybe friendship, love, passion, great sex, you name it. And then once I got really, clear on what I wanted and quite specific, shortly after, I've actually met Robert, and when I've met him, I was like, oh my God, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't crazy. I was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. There are great guys that, they can be everything you want in a relationship. And I
Mhm.
remember calling my mom and I was like, you see, for all those years when you were, arguing with me, what the heck am I wanting? What what crazy ideas do I have? There you
Mm.
go. Now I have him.
It's, girl, look, it's so funny how similar our situations is. Same thing. I ended up making a whole list. Like I was front and back on some notebook paper to God. I'm like, look, I want this. And it was so funny. Like, and when I got to the end of the list, I remember chuckling because I just was like, yeah, like we'll see,
Oh my God.
But lo and behold, here he is, and I'm over here like, oh.
I had a list as well. I had about 21 bullet points. I'm not even joking. I had a list. And when I was writing the list, I remember clearly I stopped at some point because I was like, I don't want to, limit God or the universe, because I want to leave my choices to be quite broad. So they have, because I said, maybe even if, he doesn't meet all of them, just few, it will be okay. But then I
Yeah.
thought, okay, what if I can actually choose whatever I want? How would that even look? I wanted to do this mental exercise, even if it's crazy, even if it sounds too good to be true. Let's just see how would that
Yeah.
person even look. So I've put everything on a piece of paper, and literally 2 months later, I've met my husband, I've met Robert. And once we were going out, I remembered the list and I was like, oh my God, I
Wow.
was so shocked. I couldn't believe it.
Crazy, right?
He literally ticked all of the things on my list. It
Mm.
was so weird. And once we started dating, I actually told him about the list. I was like, because I
Yeah.
kept telling him you're everything I wanted and more, because he also had some really good characteristics and things that I didn't think of putting them on my list, but he had them. So I keep saying that those are bonuses.
Yeah.
And when I told him about the list, he started laughing and he told me that he too had a list.
See?
Now, he wrote
Wow.
that list about 3 years before we've met. And
Mm.
although at that point in time when he wrote it, he was in a different relationship, he still, as he had the same thought pattern where he wanted just to see, if he could choose anything in this world, how would the perfect person be? And then, if the person he was with then, would meet at least like 85% of them, he would be happy.
Mhm.
But he gave me his, list, which is a 7-page essay, actually. I
Wow.
know, shocking. But the most shocking thing was that once I read it, it literally freaked me out because he was describing me to a T. As in, he wouldn't have as many points as I did, but he would explain each one of them. Like, for example, in this type of situation, she would react this way. She would say something along the lines of this. And when I
Mm.
read all those, I was so surprised because it was as if someone knew me, literally knew me very well, and just wrote down everything. And that I just looked at the
Wow.
list and I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. And
That's crazy.
since then, every time I tell the list story to anyone, they're like, okay, time to write a list. Let's just start writing. And I'm like, yes, because when you write it, you can call it law of attraction, you can call it God, you can call it universe, you can call it whatever you want. But once you're really clear, specifically clear on what you want, then that's what you're gonna get.
Mm. I mean, hey, y'all, if nothing else, if y'all single on here, there's something to these lists. So you might want to go ahead and start writing down what you want. I know the Bible says, like, if you write the vision and make it plain. But yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. Again, very similar. I don't know if my husband wrote a list. I think y'all probably was definitely probably more detailed. I mean, I did write like some sentences, but y'all was writing whole essays. That's the whole nother level. But still, that's amazing that you were able to read that and see that connection and look at how amazing that worked out. And
Yes, yes.
yeah, that's an amazing testimony to share.
That is great. And even I would say even those who are already in a relationship, and if they have parts that they are not happy about, they should put down on a list what they would want to
Mm,
improve and how would that improvement look like, and then
yeah.
start working one by one. Because unless you put it on paper, and I know so many coaches say this, and many times we're like, oh yes, but I know in my head. It's not the same. When you put
Yeah.
it down on paper, it becomes more real because it's written down,
Mhm.
and then you can actually look at it. And I've done this exercise so many times with so many things in my life, and it's so powerful even just to write it down, because
Yeah.
then it helps you be more focused on exactly what you want.
I agree. I agree. And actually, that makes me think even now because I've been making so many checklists lately. It's like I write down different things I want to do either the month or, whatever the case is. Y'all know how it's COVID and everything. And so my finances have been kind of fluctuating. So even when I don't necessarily have as much or whatever the case is, what I would do is just write down what I want to do. It's like, okay, well, when I get some more money, whatever the case is, I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to make sure I do this or that. And I've seen so many of those checklists just get checked off throughout the season. So yeah, man, there's something to these lists, y'all. Something to, like you said, writing it down, making it plain. And I think it helps us again for you to see and then to know what it is at the end of the day that you want. And so, hey, do it for all things. Do it for that relationship and do it for your career, whatever it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
lists
Make a list.
are good. They're working. There
There
you
you
go.
go.
I love it.
Yes, indeed. Man,
We could go on, I think, for ages.
I know. I know. I know it.
Thank you so much
Man.
for coming on. And thank you for sharing, your lovely wisdom with our subscribers and people who are watching our video. And hope to have you on again soon. Congratulations for your books, and congratulations for your upcoming new book as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. You want me to show you real quick? Because you
Sure, you
haven't
can
seen
show
the other
it.
one.
Yes,
So basically, the first publication is the Bible study journal. Again, it's
looks so
called the Juice.
good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's called the Juice. It's pretty much centered around what I've been doing for the past year or so, the daily inspiration. So I just pretty much share like different things that I've learned along the way, as well as, hopefully encouraging other people to take that time out to, Bible study every day as well. My second journal is this wine tasting journal. I
Wow.
have a wine business. It's an online wine business. I call it miracleofwine.com. And so if people want to, basically, I call myself a wine amateur. That's what it's called, the wine amateur wine tasting journal. And it's just kind of breaking down like some of the basics of wine tasting and
I
whatnot.
love
Because
the cover.
thank you. It's funny. I took this photo after one of my virtual wine tastings that I hosted last year, and now it's the cover of a book. It's so crazy, man. But yeah, so hopefully people like me, because I'm not a professional at the wine, but what I would do is like I would challenge myself to try different wines, right? And so as I did that, I now see that my palate is a little bit more refined, because I used to be one of the people that, I only will get Moscato or something. And now I'm like, okay, I might, could get with the Chardonnay or get with this or that. You know what I mean? So I think the more you try different wines, your palate will refine. At least that's what happened with me. So that's the challenge in that one. And then last but not least, right now I have a coloring book. It's called Unwind Self-Care Coloring Book for Women. It's basically inspired by a group. I have a group on Facebook. It's called Unwind Self-Care and Sip Spa. And in that group, I share about the nail polish that I sell in another online business, because you have to, multiple streams at this point, this whole COVID thing. So I have the nail polish business online, and then I also have the wine business online. And so you can see both of those at unwindselfcare.com. Spelled the way that this is, UNWINE. And the
Unwind.
coloring book, Unwind, Self-Care Spot. And I have just different images of like women and empowerment, as well as them just relaxing. And because in the group, I try my best to kind of remind us to take time to unwind. And that's the
Yes.
thing, going back to your very first question, every now and then I have to take moments to myself, and like I said, I got my son, I got my husband and all this stuff, so I need some me time every now and then. And so that's what the group is about, and that's kind of like what the coloring book is about too. So
I
those are my
love
current
these.
endeavors.
I love this so much. Thank you again for coming
Thank
today.
you.
And any last words for for the people watching us?
Well, I just want to say thank you again for sharing your platform. I can't wait till you're featured on GSL as well. If you guys want to keep up with me and things I got going on, check out godsexandlove.com. You can see some of the episodes of so many amazing conversations we've had on the show, as well as listen to the podcast, daily inspiration, and everything like that. So that's all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, if you like this video, make sure to give it a like. Also, whilst you're there, make sure to subscribe and press the bell button as well, so you're notified every time I upload a new video or an amazing interview with great guests. And as usual, make sure to share it with your friends, because you never know who needs to hear this.